Good afternoon or good morning, depending on wherever you are, and welcome to another Eye on Africa. My name is Awasar. I'm Assistant Director for Academic Affairs at MSU African Studies Center, and this is Eye on Africa, our weekly speaker series, and I'm very delighted today to have Dr. Harris, who's gonna talk to us about Black the state of Blacks in the Jamaican economy. And I want to thank very much Dr. Leonidas Murembea, who is Professor of Economics here at MSU Department of Economics, who helped us arrange this talk. So we are very grateful. And just a reminder, if you're core faculty and you want to invite a speaker, we have a form on our website. Please just go there, fill the form, and we'll work with you to invite a guest. So thank you again, Dr. Murembea, and I let you introduce our guest.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Sar. Yes, this is a pleasure to introduce Dr. Harris. I first met Dr. Harris last summer when he was assisting me in a microeconomics class. I was teaching for the American Economic Association summer program. Little did I know that he was also preparing to present his dissertation. And so one day in the morning before the class started, he casually just said, so you know, last night I successfully defended my dissertation. So I said, Dr. Harris, you need to be more excited than that. He said, no, it's not a big deal. And of course, as somebody who has been through that process, the next question was, so do you have a job? How is your job hunting is going? And he looked at me and he said, oh, I already have a job.
Oh,
So Dr. R. Harris is a senior economist in the research department at the Bank of Jamaica. He, as I just said, he completed his PhD in applied economics at Western Michigan University, and is interested in research topics that focus on climate change, economic development, monetary and international economics. So at the Bank of Jamaica, Alvin engages in long-term macroeconomics and microeconomics research that will provide a sound conceptual and empirical basis for policy making. Prior to completing his PhD, Dr. Harris completed a BS and an MS in economics at the University of West Indies, Mona campus in Jamaica. Also, he was a June Fellow, as I just mentioned, at the 2020 AEA summer program that was hosted here and jointly by Michigan State and Western Michigan University. And so I'm going to give whatever to Dr. Harris. He's going to tell us what he wants to tell us. Very interesting about Jamaica. Dr. Harris?
thank you, Dr. Leo. So very kind words of introduction. Yes, thank you very much for that. So welcome everyone. I want to speak today about the state of Blacks in the Jamaican economy. And sorry, let me know if you're seeing my screen, just so I can check. Okay, so today I want to speak about the state of Blacks in Jamaica. And you might think that, yes, it's Jamaica. It's mainly Black people who are here. But I really want to delve further to look and give a background, which is not spoken every day in Jamaica, about our pre-emancipation or pre-independence history, and then also what Jamaica is today. Now, relative to Jamaica's history, I'm a very relatively young person. So I know Jamaica mainly um, after independence. But I do know about, of course, the pre-emancipation history, because I think every Jamaican was taught about this or have seen aspects of this. So my presentation will take the form of looking first at the pre-emancipation or pre-independence history of Jamaica. And then I'll look, as an economist, I feel the duty to speak about the overall economy, what Jamaica is like in terms of employment, poverty, or economic opportunities, its education, what crime and justice is like here, and healthcare. And of course, it wouldn't be right for me to do an Eye on Africa series without speaking about the cultural aspects of Jamaica in relation to Africa. Sorry. Okay, so welcome to Jamaica. You will see that sign even when you arrive at the airport in Jamaica. So many of us, we know about this man on the screen, and his name is Bob Marley, and we all know about reggae music. So reggae music today, or since its origin, have other aspects related to Africa. It includes speaking about, in particular, about the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. And for Rastafarians, they regard this person as the reincarnation of God. So for Bob Marley, many of us, as I said, know him. He started off in a group called the Bob Marley and the Wailers with Peter Tosh and Neville Livingston, which is called Bunny Wailer, who actually recently died, I think late last month or earlier this month. And then, of course, reggae got its name from Toots and the Maytals, another person who is big here. And he recently died as well earlier this month, and he received that Grammy Award just recently. But stepping into modern, well, not modern times to say, but another famous person in Jamaica is Usain Bolt. And we know this man to be the fastest man in the world, and he holds many records both in the 100 meter, the 100 meter, and the 4x100 meters as it relates to sprint. So Jamaica, what is Jamaica? Here I'm showing a map of Jamaica relative to Michigan. So you are all the way up here, but here is Jamaica. And as you can see, Jamaica relative to Michigan is very, very, very small, but let's even look at a deeper picture. This is how small Jamaica is. You can drive across the country in about 6 hours. Or 6.5 hours you can drive. So you can think about a drive you have taken that is probably way more than 6 hours. Well, you'd have completed from one end of Jamaica to the other. And of course, some of these points we know about, we probably have heard about, like Negril or Montego Bay, and of course, Kingston, where I am at currently. And I grew up somewhere around here, right between Savannah Lamar and Negril. So for today, let's get into the pre-emancipation or pre-independence history for Jamaica. So Jamaica was a country that was called Jamaica, right? And this was the name really given by the Tianos, or what we call the Arawaks, and they were the original inhabitants of Jamaica. And so this name really means land of wood and water. And today Jamaica is still regarded as the land of wood and water. So in those times, it was mainly a agrarian society where we plant grown provisions like cassava, corn, fruits, vegetables, and of course, tobacco. If you come today, you can get bami and fish, which is made from cassava. But then came, of course, a genocide, or the voyage of Christopher Columbus. And sorry, my screen stuck. Sorry. Okay. So again, Christopher Columbus came to Jamaica on his second voyage around May 5th, 1494. And he heard about this country from the Cubans, actually, and because it was deemed as the land of blessed gold. And where he arrived was in Sentence Bay, that's in the north side. From the map I showed it before, on the north side of Jamaica. And so once he came here, the Spaniards began to take over and really colonize the country and tortured and kill Arawaks. But then, as you know today, I'm speaking English to you, not Spanish. So then the English came in 1655 and really initiated an attack on the Spaniards and won. So the Spaniards surrendered and fled their slaves, where some of them some of them fled to Cuba. And those slaves that were freed are today known as Maroons. So Maroon is a big thing here in Jamaica. They actually have their own, I would call community, which has independent laws of Jamaica, and it's run as in like a mini country within a country today. And I will speak a little bit more about Maroon later in the presentation. So again, once the English settled, this drew attention to buccaneers from Port Royal, which is close to Kingston. And Port Royal was well known at that time. It was known as the wickedest and most wealthiest place in the world, actually. And in particular, there was this buccaneer called Henry Morgan, who was the captain, and he worked on behalf of the English to raid the Spaniards' fleet and colonies. And of course, this really hindered the Spaniards' ability to really keep the English at a bay. But tragically, something happened to Port Royal, and this is well known and being taught in schools today, where Port Royal had a severe earthquake on June 7th, 1692. And so really part of that land, along with all of that belongings, sank in the Caribbean Sea. And so what that had is an out-migration from Port Royal to further in Kingston. So let's, as you know, my foreparents are originally from Africa. So how did I get here? Or how did they get here? This was due to the slave trade. And so there was, even after the English arrived, there were still some rebellions that occurred. And one of those rebellions was an Easter rebellion that was led by an an African called Taki. And he's from the Akan tribe, right? And they were originally from Ghana and Ivory Coast. I will say that most of these history, I believe today, are not taught to the general persons in schools, unless you major in history or some African studies. And of course, this guy right here is called Sam Sharp, and today he's one of the national heroes of Jamaica. And what he did was he started a Christmas rebellion in 1839 that really fought against the system of oppression then. And of course, we have the Maroon War. I spoke about the Maroon. Those were freed slaves after the English attacked Jamaica. And so these Maroons, why they are so strong even today, is that they were very skilled in war. And so you had two particular, I should have 740 right here. Sorry, I should have 1739, not 739 there. That's a typo. So we had two Maroon Wars in particular from 1739 and 1740. And because of this tension or this war still, treaties were drawn up between the Maroons and the British. And so the condition of these treaties were that they were given the land and the rights to be free men and women. But of course, and in return, the Maroons would stop the recapturing of slaves and return those who ran away. But of course, this didn't seem like a win-win situation. And so some Maroons, like Nani of the Maroon, disagreed. And I'll speak a little bit more as well about Nani. So Nani here is regarded, she's the only heroine we have today. She is even on our Jamaican currency, the $500 bill. So Nani of the Maroon was the leader of the Maroons in the 18th century. And the reason why she is even a national hero today was because she represented a symbol of unity and strength for her people, especially during the Maroon War. So she's been described as a woman who was small, small, weary woman with piercing eyes, as you can see. But her influence over the Maroons was really strong. And some said that it was due to her supernatural strength and connected to her powers of Obia, which is also voodoo. And of course, we know Obia voodoo has its African origins as well. Today in Jamaica, and I guess we'll speak about that a little bit more, Obia is not regarded as something good in Jamaica. It is really frowned upon. In fact, if you have dealings with Obia, you're considered to be an evil person or have evil intentions, so to speak. So, of course, Nani disagreed with the treaty, which Powell, the leader of the Maroon, so the leader of the Maroon at the time of the First War was signed. So today, this guy right here is the chief of the Maroon today. He recently got elected about 3-4 weeks ago, so about a month ago. And so his name is Chief Richard Curry. He's the youngest so far leader of the Jamaica Accompong Maroons. So the Accompong Maroons are, they reside in a parish in St. Elizabeth. So that was close to Westmoreland that I showed you. And they have a big area. Matter of fact, 74,726 hectare-acre of land. That's just theirs. And so they are considered really a sovereign nation inside Jamaica. So as I said before, it's kind of like a nation within a nation, right? And the cockpit country is really one of the largest forest area in Jamaica. There have been some, what do you call, defending they had to do against the Jamaican government because of some mining that was the government had given, mining rights the government had given to some organization, but that is yet to be seen. So the Leeward Maroons were really descendants of Western African slaves, and really they fled the harsh plantation conditions of really the indigenous Amerindians. So in particular, I believe that the Maroons are in today's society the closest persons you have to their African origins. 70% of these Accompong residents really still engage in subsistence farming. So they still grow crops like yam, banana, breadfruit, potatoes, ginger, etc. Right? And so they still use traditional African farming techniques. If you should ever come to Jamaica, I will personally introduce you to these crops, this type of food. So we want to talk about now the pre-independence history. So due to the efforts of humanity, sorry, the pre-emancipation still, I should have there. So due to the efforts from the humanitarian and anti-slavery groups like the Quakers, Jamaica received its emancipation in 1838. And today we celebrate that on August 1st. And so post-slavery, the result of having slavery being abolished saw a mass migration of British just leaving Jamaica. And so what that meant is that they brought their wealth with them, which means that Jamaica was left in a very underdeveloped and close to impoverished state. So we really become poorer, leaving the plantation to new owners. And this kind of led into the in-migration of indentured workers from India in particular. So today in Jamaica, we have many Indians. Although they are a minority, we still have them being the largest minority group. And of course, during that time, the American Civil War also meant that supplies would be cut off for coming into Jamaica, which again meant that things would be hard economically in Jamaica for Jamaicans. So here we have two persons who are also national heroes. And so this person's name is Paul Bogle, and this person's name is George William Gordon. So some of you may look at Paul Bogle and say he's another person in the US. I can't remember his name right now, but in recent times we have seen some pictures being posted in the US about someone who I think maybe did an invention, and it was the same exact image. So I guess that is to be resolved. But these two persons, what they did was to fight against the social injustice and poverty situation that was happening in the 1865. And so this was on the eastern end of the island, and it's called the Morenb Rebellion. And so what happened is that they stormed the courthouse, and so several white and custos in that parish had died as a result. And there was a Governor Edward Erie, who was really acting as a diplomat for the British, really decided, when the rebellion ended, really decided to go back to England, but not before actually being sympathetic and, not before actually giving some reward to the Jamaican people. As a result of the Morenb Rebellion, more than about 430 people died and were executed. In fact, Paul Bogle and George William Gordon was hung in Jamaica. So after the rebellion, as I mentioned before, Irie left to England, went back there, but he did, I guess, leave with giving the island some improvement in education, health, and other social services. And then as a result of the rebellion, we also saw better roads, railways, and cable communication. And then in 1872, Kingston now became the capital. Initially, before that, it was Spanish Town, which is really in the parish of St. Catherine, just beside Kingston, right? But of course, in the 1930s, we know what happened globally. We had the Great Depression coming on. And so what we saw is that Jamaica was really heading into another crisis. And so we had a slow pace of political advancement. There was ruining the banana industry because Jamaica was still then a very agricultural centric country. And the banana industry was hit by the Panama industry disease. We had falling sugar prices. Jamaica was a big player in sugar crop farming. That was one of the main crops along with tobacco. In fact, we called sugar then sugar king, right? But this, we had growing unemployment, which was aggravated by curtailing the migration opportunities. And of course, the steeply rising population growth rate at that time. So given this need for a more politically structured Jamaica, two persons, actually they are cousins, Sir Alexander Bustamante at the top and Norman Manley at the bottom, both of them leaders of individual workers' union. They created their own party. Sir Alexander Bustamante here, he created the Jamaica Labour Party, the first leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, and Norman Manley created the People's National Party. Sir Alexander Bustamante was indeed the first Prime Minister of Jamaica. And so Jamaica, even we fought for independence, and this was granted on August 6th, 1962. We still today maintain the British head as the president, so to speak. So we're not a republic, we're not in a republic system. So the Governor General for Jamaica acts on behalf of the Queen of England. So, but these two gentlemen really paved the way for a more structured constitution, which is aimed to provide better freedom, equality, and justice for Jamaicans. And this is another person who, though he died before Jamaica got independence, was really instrumental. And he was our first national hero. He's widely known across the world, and his name is Marcus Garvey. There are many national awards that he has received, including schools being named after him as well. So he was one of those chief architect who wanted to create the Constitution despite dying before independence, as I said before. And an organization that he created was the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which really is trying to promote more Black consciousness, to encourage really self-government for Black people worldwide, and help to promote economic projects for Black people and protest against racial discrimination. He was really a Pan-Africanist, really pushing the philosophy of race pride and, of course, African unity, meaning people of all African descent uniting more. So in terms of modern day Jamaica, here we have the coat of arms, and this is Jamaica's motto. And I believe other countries have a similar motto. So here we have the Tianos are the Arawaks, the original inhabitants of Jamaica. And below we have out of many, one people. And the reason why we have this motto is because, again, Jamaica has multiple ethnicities. We have Black people here, we have white people here, we have Indians, we have Chinese, we have all different types of ethnicities. It's really diverse, even though many persons here have a skin tone of like mine or a little bit lighter. And so after independence, we of course created our own flag. And so this flag, the black, green, and gold, is one of the most distinct and famous flags across the world. So the gold really represents our national wealth and the beauty of sunshine. So as we know, Jamaica is a very, its climate is very tropical. So it doesn't really get cold, fortunately, I suppose, with this snow. Yeah, we don't get snow here. Currently, it's probably about 30-something degrees Celsius. And then the black depicts the strength and the creativity of people. And green, of course, the hope and agricultural resource. As I said, Jamaica is a very, well, let me not say very, but it's still an agricultural-based country. So what is Jamaica like today? What is the state of really Blacks in Jamaica? Well, a large percent of Jamaicans are visibly Black or mixed, light skin, meaning light skin, or they are Indians. And really the Indians came here, as I mentioned, from the indentureship. So after slavery was abolished, you got cheap labor from Indians that came here to do work. And of course, even though I said some British left, not all of them left. Today we still have white persons here. You may not see them on a day-to-day basis, but they're here. I will say personally for me, the first time I met a Jamaican who is white was about 2016. So they're here, maybe they just, you don't see them on a regular basis. All right, and then as I said, except for the Maroons, so this is how distinct Jamaicans are from, I guess, Africans, you'd say, right? Except for Maroons, there are no real tribes in Jamaica. So we don't have a Akan tribe, as I mentioned before, or anything like that. You don't have anything to really distinguish to say, oh, I belong to such and such tribe, similar to how like a Hutu or a the other group in Rwanda. I'm forgetting the name right now, right? So, but we do, nonetheless, we do celebrate events that have African origins. And in a global, in our everyday life, we really just see this mainly in schools. So maybe you'll be at primary school or high schools, you really get to celebrate or know about these African origins. So we are taught about our African origins in schools. So we do know that we African ancestors. We do practice a dance or a festival, which is called Jankuno. And so this is really a fusion of African mass dances and British folklore. So in this way, they dress up a lot. So they will go on the streets and they will just have their festival. So usually a Jankuno typically has like a king, a queen. You have a devil and a pichi pachi, and of course a belly woman. That's just a woman who just put something under her clothes to resemble that she is pregnant. And of course you have a cow head, policeman, horse head. So these are some different costumes you will have. As it relates to more to Africa, we do recognize some African figures such as Nelson Mandela. We do have a highway here called Nelson Mandela Highway, of course. So we do have some relations with people of Africa, people who are in Africa right now. So another closeness to this is that our knowledge and celebration of African heritage, as I mentioned before, are mainly through music and religion, I would say. So you have the revivalism, which is a type of religion here as well. And you have revival, Zion, Apocomania, Mento, Calypso, Reggae, which some people would call a Rastafarian music. And you have ska and rocksteady. Me being this young, I guess, we are mainly introduced to Calypso, Reggae, and I know about ska and rocksteady, and you see revivalism, but if you're not in that church or religion, you may not experience this. So for me, for example, personally, I have not experienced revivalism. I know what it is, but I've never partake in its traditions. So because I'm an economist, as I said before, and we're really looking at what the state of Jamaicans, state of Blacks in Jamaica are. Jamaica is made up mainly of Black people. So anything that happens to the economy will more than likely happen disproportionately to people who are Black. And so what I have here just simply was just to show Jamaica's debt to GDP ratio. And the reason for me showing this was really to show how indebted Jamaica is. The higher we are indebted, is the less likely we are able to borrow from other countries and use that to put into productive activities so that Jamaica can grow. But over the years, we have seen, coming into 2020, we have seen a significant reduction in the debt to GDP ratio, which meant that many Jamaicans, or it's supposed to insinuate that many Jamaicans' lives should be improving. We'll speak about if that's actually the case a little bit later. So I mentioned before that Jamaica, pre-emancipation and pre-independence, we were mainly an agricultural society. And today, many of you may know that Jamaica is tourism-based. You want to come to Jamaica and you want to be on the beach side, you want to go to a hotel. So this table that I show just here, don't focus on the numbers too much per se, but it shows really the main goods drivers of Jamaica. So what are people really doing here? And as we can see, even just looking at 2018, for example, we see that Jamaica activities Currently, it's mainly focusing on manufacturing and construction, and agriculture is next, right? And then in terms of services, we do see a large part of it being total other services, which has to do with tourism and even tourism related activities. And of course, we can see that Jamaica's GDP has really been leveling off. We for the large part of the past decade, we have not been growing much, not more than 1% per se, or even 2%. And finally, for the employment section, I wanted to show the industry that really employs the most person. We can just focus on the last column right here and focus on the big numbers, right? And so what I really wanted to highlight here again was that in terms of wholesale, retail, and equipment, that's where most Jamaicans are really employed. And it's then followed by agriculture and then tourism. So even though you may hear about Jamaica as being a tourism-based country, tourism really employs, in terms of employment, is really the third largest as of the end of 2019. We do have employment in other section, of course, but that's what it is there. And what about the unemployment rate? Well, here we see that there have been a general decline in the unemployment rate for Jamaica, which means, again, since most of us are Black, it means that things have been improving for us generally in terms of getting a job. But while we're getting a job, this table that I'm showing here really is depicting the band or the earnings of Jamaicans. So for example, this first band here is showing that persons who are employed, let's say between 0 and 1,500,000, which is roughly about $10,000 $10,000 US dollars a year. So this is per year. So a Jamaican who is earning between $0 to $10,000, roughly 10,000 US dollars a year, most of them are earning that. That's what I'm showing here. So we see that in 2018, 374 out of 503,000 people, 374 of them were earning less than 10,000 US dollars per year. And then following from that, between 1 million to $600,000, it's about 116,000 people. And of course, we see a very small number of people earning more than $6 million. This is for a public sector worker, this is almost unheard of. People do, but the majority do not earn above $6 million. And the reason for this band per se is that persons currently who earn between 0 to $1.5 million Jamaican, that is between 0 to 10,000 US dollars, they will pay no income tax. But persons who earn between 10,000 US dollars to about, let's say, maybe about 30,000 US, if my math is right, they would pay an income tax, right? And I put the exchange rate here to show how you could compute this for the equivalent of the US dollar, right? So in 2018, for example, the US dollar was, you could get $1 US could buy 129 Jamaican dollars, okay? So as again, you can see that this is a problem that's here in Jamaica. And really, even though Black people here are really getting some form of employment, in terms of earnings, it is not that much. And this has really spurred some debate recently about having a livable wage rather than focusing on a minimum wage. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this was a recent excerpt from a newspaper I saw the other day. And what I wanted to show was really the earnings again for Jamaicans. So for example, you will see that most of the salaries, this one up here is from $5.7 million to about $6 million. And then this one below it, which is for the deputy commissioner, which is for a deputy commissioner position, is between 4 million. But for the rest of them, right, it's between 1 million, 2 million, 1 million, 1 million, and then you have another one, 3 million. So this just proves the point that we saw earlier, the anecdotal evidence right here, that most Jamaicans do not earn above 3 million Jamaican dollars per year, which again would roughly be about 20,000 US dollars per year. And that is with qualification, university qualification, or even a master's degree. So, and that has spurred a lot of activities, which I will talk about actually next. And this again really going on the poverty versus economic opportunities still, because here we see that a person who should have like a master's in business administration, they will get around 2.5 to about $3 million for their salary. And then of course, there's a whole list of requirements, but for this, I was just showing the salary. I wanted to show the salary, and of course, what's the pay would be like. So what is wealth distribution like in Jamaica? So since we're focusing on the state of Blacks, do Blacks earn or have most of the wealth in Jamaica? You would think so, but that is not the case. That's similar to what happened during slavery. Much of the wealth in Jamaica still remain among whites, or I will call it, I said mixed people. That is to say that they could be Indians and Black, or white and Black. So we call them in history mulattoes. Right? And so, but there are instances, of course, that's not to say that there aren't instances that Black people have become wealthy. We, in Jamaica, there are some wealthy Black people, but it's not a lot. And because of data limitation, so Jamaica is not like the US, where data is published like readily on racial or on ethnic group. In Jamaica, I have never seen, and I have no knowledge of seeing a racial based data or even ethnicity based data. That is something I don't know if statisticians have never really considered, but I have not seen it, right? So because of data limitation, I was unfortunately not able to provide put some numbers to this, because it's not important. Sorry. So, however, data limitation prevent this computation, particularly because it's not much importance are given to racial diversity in Jamaica. So, for example, you will have the Affordable Care Act in the United States. There is no such law per se in Jamaica, but we do have, you're kind of seen as just a regular person. We do not have any overt like racism or anything like that. We do have, in a sense, colorism though, and classism here. We have seen some evidence of that. So anecdotal evidence from being a native personally would suggest that lighter skin tone has more success. And I say that under two premise. One is that it's really the sentiment of most Jamaicans that if your skin tone is lighter, you're more likely to succeed. Like for example, if you're a Black person as I am, and you go with a lighter skinned person, maybe to a bank, that person, for a loan, that person will probably get the loan over you. That has happened, and people have been treated differently because of their skin tone. So much so that there's a phenomenon in Jamaica called bleaching. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with it, but what bleaching is, I may use some type of soap, some chemical on my skin, and it will get my skin very clear, close to yellow or just really brown. What we call brown here is, I would say, like the tone of a Indian person. I'm trying to describe it well, but brown, I would not be considered as a person who is brown. A brown person would be somewhat what persons from the US would call like yellow skin or a light skin person. Those would be brown. So think about maybe like a Chris Brown or a Drake. Those would be brown hair. And again, I said this was one of the argument for skin bleachers that was offered, that they have, if they bleach, they'll probably have likely success, or they will get a better chance, right? And though this is not an exhaustive list, there are some wealthy persons here who are white, such as like George Bolt Stewart, and Michael Lee Chin, John Issa, and Joseph Matalan. Maybe the most famous of those persons would be George Bolt Stewart, who owns the Sandals Resort here in Jamaica. And he recently died as well, sadly. But these, even though they are white, these persons have really given back or contributed significantly to Jamaica. So we do see that as well. Sorry, all right. So I wanted to also touch on what it is like for home ownership, particularly because I believe to understand the real state of Jamaicans, state of Blacks in Jamaican economy, I really have to touch on different aspects of their life that really a regular person really want to get access to, such as employment, and home ownership is one of them. So Jamaica has, since independence, have really developed, and we have an organization called the National Housing Trust, which main mandate is to really get Jamaicans to gain access to housing through loans. And these persons should be between 18 and 70. And the loans here, because we recognize that this is a non-profit organization, most of the loans are between 0 to 4%. So I wanted to just give anecdotal evidence as well. Sorry that these figures are not in the US, but I will tell you what they would be in the US equivalent. So this is what rent is like in Kingston. So for example, these right here is saying like a 1-bedroom and a 1-bathroom house. So the cheapest I have seen is about $65,000, which is about 650 US dollars. And these are the cheapest. You have them going up to in the thousands for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And I highlight this to show whether or not most Blacks in Jamaica, or even Kingston in particular here, would be able to afford. Now remember that I told you that the salary of a typical person is like $1.5 million per year. But this is the rent per month. So that person would have been earning, let's say, a little bit above $100,000 Jamaican dollars. So if that person should live by themselves and spend this, that would mean that they have about $30-something thousand left. And so that really depicts again what the state of Jamaicans are like in this economy. So in terms of housing, especially in Kingston, it's a little bit harsher. But what about education as well? So education is good in Jamaica. We have a high literacy rate, but what I want to highlight here, and again, I just highlight these numbers just to highlight one point, and it's to say that while we have a large number of persons going to primary and secondary schools, particularly because it's mandatory, we don't have a lot. You see that number drop significantly when it becomes when we're looking at tertiary level. So not many people are really going forward for a tertiary education, which economically speaking may not have a highly skilled workforce, even though I disagree partly with that. But this table, I wanted to show to compare the employment versus the education aspect for Jamaicans. So what this table up here is showing the number of individuals, and then this is really their qualifications. So this represents that they have no qualifications, meaning that when they were in high school, so after high school, when you're in high school, you have 5 years that you have to do mandatory. At the end of that 5 years, you have to do a big exam and pass certain subjects, for example, in mathematics, in English, and any other subjects that, based on your career choice, could do. So to get most jobs in Jamaica, they require that you have 5 CXCs. We call them CXCs, Caribbean Examination Council exams. So you have to pass 5 CXC exams, right? What I wanted to show is really down this bottom part of the chart, and to show the years, the age of the persons, and the percent of them that has no qualification or some qualification. We can clearly see here that, for example, between the age group of 25 to 34, which are young persons, 49.6% of them really has no education at all, really has no qualification. They did not pass any of those subjects, right? And then only 1.7% of them have the basics there. In terms of tertiary, we do see though that about 6.8% of them have tertiary level qualification. And of course here represent a degree. So this could have been, for example, the difference between tertiary certification or associate degree and degree. Degree here represents like a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or a doctoral degree. Mainly a bachelor's degree here though. And here this represents such as going to a trade school, for example. And so after the end of trade school, you could get that qualification. So about 6.8% of them have that certification. So I want to touch also on the crime and justice. So in Jamaica, the crime and justice is a very mixed bag. In Jamaica, we see a lot of persons, well, we see cases where persons get away when they commit certain crime, and some who are penalized heavily. So this case that I'm highlighting right here, and you can read about it as well, it's about a guy called Patrick Powell. He was freed on a case. So this guy right here, notice that they say is an X6 murder case because he drives an X6, and driving an X6 here, X6 BMW, you kind of presume to have a lot of money. So what happened with this case, for example, is that there was some incident with his car and a taxi. And it is understood that he came out and he just shot up the car, and a teenager who was going to the Kingston College School was shot and killed. But the verdict is, of course, you can see in the heading that it turns out that he was freed. And so socially, that in some people's mind led to the feeling that if you're wealthy, you will get free. He did in fact get charged for not turning over his firearm. So that was really the only charge that was laid against him. So as I mentioned, it is a mixed bag here. You have where some persons deem to say the richer you are, is the justice system may work for you, but if you're poorer, the justice system may work against you. But I want to also highlight something. So Jamaica is a great place, but there are some things that it has that we really want to get away from, and one of them is really where Jamaica stands as it relates to crime and justice. And as you can see here, the Jamaica crime rate has been staggeringly high. No, that doesn't mean that as a foreigner you come into Jamaica, you will be harmed. Most of these are just really against civilians or gang wars or stuff like that. All right. So what you can see is that Jamaica is clearly above the average for the Caribbean, and the United States is here, and Jamaica is way up here. And so for us, this is something that all Jamaicans have been calling for to be addressed, because it is getting out of hand. And it has, even though this graph says that it's from 1990 to 2007, it has at least stayed the same or gone a little bit higher, even despite the COVID pandemic. So earlier, I showed you, at the start of this presentation, I showed you a picture of Jamaica and really the parishes. So in terms of where these crimes are happening, most of them are really happening in the Kingston and St. Andrew area, as you can see. And Kingston is even though it's a very small parish, it's a very dense place. And so you will have it being broken up into different sections. These other ones down here are really the parishes. And so except for St. James and the Kingston and St. Andrew, parishes, crime is there, but it is not as high as those other ones. All right, so I wanted to touch on also the health care, because health really indicate what state the Jamaican Black people are in. And so we're fortunate to have healthcare being free for all citizens in Jamaica. It is indeed free unless you go to a private clinic, private facility, right? But of course, as I mentioned, there are some private enterprises, and this mainly attract the more affluent persons, right? So you will have some issues though in the health field. And what is that? Well, you really have low wages for the health worker professionals, and you have that should be long waiting time. I have been to the hospital before and I've waited probably about 12 hours. So if you go to the hospital, just know that everything on that day is more than likely canceled. And in recent times, we had some death of patients due to the lack of assistance by medical professionals, which has really caused some citizens to be really disgruntled. So in terms of the issues, as I mentioned about the low wages, here, this is just one hospital in Jamaica, and it's in Kingston, the University Hospital of the West Indies. And this hospital, as it says here, lost 70 nurses to foreign countries. And this is because of the low wage. This has always been a prevailing problem in Jamaica, where nurses feel, one, that the wages are too low, or they may feel unappreciated. So you have heard sentiments about that, and that has led to that. Now, this on the right was an incident that happened just a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, it says March 1st, 2021. So these two things, both of these actually were on the same day. So as you can see is, for this incident, what happened is that this young lady had an asthma attack and went to the hospital, but was told that there were no beds, and then no beds, and the mother was saying that I don't need a bed, I just need the oxygen. But there was some event that kept happening, and eventually the child died. So that has really push Jamaicans to really demand more from the Minister of Health to really address certain issues that remain in the health sector, especially in the pandemic. So and I want to, before I end, speak about the culture again, especially given that this is an Eye on Africa series, and we wanted to, and Jamaicans most Jamaicans are clearly African descendants. So as I said before, Jamaica is quite reflective of its motto, out of many one people. If you are here, you will see people of different ethnicities, and they are Jamaicans. Many of us have a very strong pride in Jamaica. We are proud to be Jamaican. We love Jamaica. We would stay here. It's just maybe for issues such as the crime or the low wage that would cause us to leave. I believe if those two issues were addressed, many Jamaicans would actually stay here. But our culture is very diverse in terms of food and music, just to name two things, right? We have food such as curry, which you get from the Indians. We have jerk chicken, which came from the Maroons. And we have many other different types that I really can't name right now, but if you should come to Jamaica, I would definitely introduce you to them. But as a highlight here, but one thing that unfortunately is not deeply built in the Jamaican culture is really our African culture. As I mentioned, we had the Junkuno and we knew about where we came from, but we are not on a daily basis or reminded of it, I would say. Jamaica is really just like an amalgamation of different cultures around the world. And so really beside Rastafarians, there is really no consistent impression on us about our African heritage or going back to the motherland. And so for me personally, what I would want to see for the state of Blacks in Jamaica, that despite we being a very beautiful place and we have spectacular talent, despite this, there are some areas for growth. And I believe that we could build on greater educational programs to celebrate our African ancestry and culture. We do have cultural programs from the JCDC, Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, but many times some of those really just celebrate the uniqueness about Jamaica but I don't see a very strong link, especially to African ancestry. And then, of course, we need to address the issue of the crime and the low wage. In terms of Jamaica's connection to Africa, currently we only have about 5 African embassies or high commissions in Jamaica. And so, or less than 5, I should say. And so these are really Algeria, Nigeria, and South Africa. But we have several consulates from Ethiopia, Ghana, and Namibia, right? So, sorry. So I have reached, I believe I have touched succinctly on really the state of Jamaicans, state of Blacks in Jamaican economy. But I wanted to leave with I wanted to play this one song by an artist called Chronix, who is a reggae artist. And I put the lyrics there for you to really follow. And what he's speaking about really is reflective of what's really happening in Jamaica. And he's a Jamaican, so he's really speaking about this. So I will just play it for you. And at the end, I will end this presentation. So I indulge your attention for this.
Alvin, you're not hearing it.
Oh, sorry, you're not hearing it?
No.
Oh, I am sorry. Let me see if somehow, let me know if you can hear it. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, but we're not having the
And you're
sound.
hearing it now?
No.
You're not hearing it?
Oh, maybe it's the headphones because you have the headphones. Somebody wrote.
Oh, sorry. All right, let me take off my headphones then.
But maybe we can people can watch it. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry?
It seemed it was coming, but I was just saying to just answer questions and answers. Maybe it's fine,
Okay.
and people can look it up on their own.
Yeah, you can.
So we can have time for the question and answers part.
Sorry, let me go back to this. Okay. Sorry, are you hearing me still?
Yes. I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Okay, very good question by Isaac. I am seeing a question by Isaac. So Isaac is asking, what is the contribution of music industry to Jamaica? I would say a large part. I believe I showed a slide on, sorry if I'm moving up. This thing is, give me a sec. Okay, are you seeing my screen still or not? Hello?
No, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh,
No.
Give me a sec. I'm going to share my screen again. My bad. Sorry for that hiccup.
You're fine.
So, to answer Isaac's question, the music industry has contributed a lot to Jamaica. We have it kind of in hotel services as well. And I am looking here if I did have it personally. So I don't have the numbers here, but anecdotally, we do contribute a lot to GDP. We have many, we call them stage shows. You may call them like concerts. But music is a very, very integral or deep part of Jamaicans in Jamaica. So if you want those numbers, I could try and get them for you. If you want like numbers to it, is that the case? I don't know if Isaac is in the chat or.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, maybe you can. Well, we just wanted to thank you, Alvis, really for the very general overview of Jamaica, and we have learned a lot. And I was just wondering if you have a general idea. You talk about the majority of Jamaicans being Blacks. Do we the percentage? What's the percentage?
It's about 80% or more. Yeah,
80%.
80%. So most persons will look like me here, and even if they're like, as I said, some can be mixed. As I said, so you can look like me, but you're an Indian per se. If you get what I mean, yeah. I was gonna show you a picture of me and my friend. I don't know if I still have it, but we do have a very diverse. We do have a very diverse number of people here, our ethnic background, so to speak.
Okay, and I think Monique wants to talk. I'm trying to allow you to talk, Monique.
Right. So hi, Alvin. And then so thanks for
Monique.
Yeah. And then so I have a few comments and then questions, and then so I'll just put my comments first. And then so what I want to say is that I again, going back to the diversity of Jamaica. And then, so my work does look at Jamaica and it examines race and skin color inequality. So there is data actually available to talk about race and skin color differences outside of anecdote.
That would be nice. So sorry not to cut you, but where did you get that?
I'm about to tell you. I was about to share. So you can look at the census from IPOMS International that has race information. So you can look at things like home ownership through that, as well as employment, etc. There is also LAPOP, which is a Latin American public opinion poll. It's free access, and that's in several Caribbean countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. But Jamaica is one of the countries, and they have data from about 2006 to 2019. From 2012, they started collecting skin color data in addition to racial data.
Oh, that's nice.
So there is that, and there's also my work that I've published on education and skin color and race. That so just to talk about like the economic position of
Your
Black.
accent is Jamaican.
Right.
Are you Jamaican?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And then so to talk about like wholesale and construction being the main hiring areas or realms for Blacks in Jamaica, I think it would be interesting to also talk about the state of Chinese, because you talk mostly about indentured servants as being East Indians, but I think it would be even more important to talk about Chinese, particularly with China's neocolonial activity in Jamaica and them having monopoly not only on the wholesale industry in Jamaica, but also construction now by way of Jamaica's connection with China with that.
I definitely agree with you, Monique. I was actually trying to get those, but you know, I don't know if you know that data is a very hard thing to get in Jamaica sometimes. You only have to go through certain channels.
Right. So that's why I use like these channels that I'm available, because I've tried to get data from Staten, and that was
So as a Bank of Jamaica employee, I try to get it through like PIOJ or Staten, and you know what I'm,
Right.
But that's like pulling a teeth, as we say.
Right, and so also to talk about the Black population of Jamaica, and I think this is where US conceptions of race come into play a lot, is that even though like CIA fact book knows that like about 90% of Jamaicans are Black, they're not accounting separately for mixed race Jamaicans and those who are not mixed in their ancestry. And there's a lot of differences, as you'll be aware of, about treatment based on skin shade in Jamaica that is very systematic. There's systematic outcomes. It's not like anecdote, like I'm treated better or I have better mates. It's linked to educational outcome. It's linked to health and all these other factors, right? So another point I want to make is when you list white Jamaicans, is to talk. I had a problem with framing them as white Jamaicans because Isas and so forth, they're not white. We in Jamaica consider them white, but not in US conception of who is Caucasian. Also, Michael Lee Chin is mixed race. He's
he's mixed race, he's not white.
Right, so they wouldn't necessarily be white. My question though, I'll get to that quickly. We can talk another time. I want to leave questions for other people, but one of your suggestions is to have greater programs celebrating Blackness. So what do you propose to be the benefit of that in terms of employment outcomes?
So you're saying that I am thinking of promoting African ancestral heritage rather than the employment?
So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but then since you're talking about economic positions of Black, what do you see is the contribution economically to have those type of programs that talk more about African ancestry in educational institutes? Like, what is the tie you're seeing with that? Because you had a slide about education connections with employment. So since that's one of your suggestions, what is the connection with having that educational difference to employment outcomes?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Sorry.
You want me to repeat the question?
No, I'm trying to see. Because,
okay.
So let me maybe phrase it. So you're saying that why do I want the link between education and employment? Why am I guess stressing that as opposed to
No. I'm asking, what do you see as the link between having more Afro-centered programs and employment outcomes?
Okay. Well, personally, where I was coming from that was really because how long have you been in Jamaica? I don't know. That's a personal question.
I was born and raised in Jamaica. I lived
So,
when I was
so
18,
you,
and I still
I
black.
guess you would agree with me that per se it's not really celebrated on a daily basis, to be honest. Besides being in high school and primary, as soon as you get out of that, there's not much really celebration per se, at least for me, where we celebrate that African ancestry. So for me, I would just want personally to see more of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be linked with greater employment or economic opportunities per se.
Are we allowed to make comments beside the presenter?
Go ahead, Leo.
Sure, because Alvin and myself, we often just call and just talk about these issues. And one of just to follow up on Kelly's Monique Kelly's question, is just this disconnection that we have among Black people, right? You know, when I was growing up back in Rwanda, I knew that there was slave trade that brought Black people in the Americas, but I never knew how spread out we are, right? And now that I'm here, I go, to the Caribbeans and I see most people are Black. I go to Brazil, I see majority are Black, but I have no idea of we have no relations at all. And instead, we have developed these relationships between Africa and the colonials, and we're still complaining about this dependency, economic dependency theories that we have. Well, we can, develop this relationship among Africans all over the places, and actually develop these relationships of commercial and trade relationships among those peoples, and actually become powerful. So, Alvin and myself were actually thinking about the issue that you raised, Monique, about the influence of China all over the places, not just in Jamaica, but in Africa. And actually we're thinking about doing a comparative analysis between Jamaica and Mali and see if China is doing any different policies in other parts of the world than it's doing in Africa. And so, to me, all is linked. We can't just say we're just doing this for fun. I think by showing Africans in the diaspora that there is a Black population in Africa that is growing, that is very proud of itself, that will raise the status of Blacks all over the world. To me, that's my opinion.
Right. And then, so I just want to say, like, I am not against, I'm for having more Afro-Centered things, because I mean, Deborah Thomas talks about this, and she's an anthropologist about Blackness and race in terms of developing Jamaican national identity, right? And so I guess why I asked that question is to have it more centered with your talk about the racial position, right? Because again, in employment outcomes, there are skin color disparity. I know there was an instance with a trade school in Jamaica put in explicitly that they wanted brown applicants. And that happened. I have an article from like 2015 or 2017 happening. And then, so like, again, because this is something that I'm asked to do in my own work in terms of like having policies to combat these issues of colorism and racism in Jamaica, right?
I agree with you, Monique. And as you said, you were born and raised in Jamaica. So these are things we see on a daily basis. But I guess from my point of view, and being an economist, and going to the channels that I know for the data, they don't have it in that granular, disaggregated level. But we know, you and I both know, that definitely as it relates to education, there are, you can see visibly based on even your skin color, so to speak, that you go to a certain type of school, or even if you belong to a certain class, you know, that's just something that we really see. Like some people go to private schools versus some, and high level private school versus just the regular public schools. And that definitely can affect, you know, your educational outcome and even your employment outcome. And I think the pandemic personally has made this even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and thank you, Dr. Harris, too. So we have other questions. Philip has a question. Thanks for a very enlightening and down-to-earth presentation on one of my favorite places. Apart from the athletes and musicians, you mentioned other Jamaicans that are famous in other sectors. Also, would you mention Peter Tosh as one of the original whalers?
Oh, he was one, yeah. He was one. I think I may have said it earlier in the presentation that Peter Tosh was one. Are you saying I should expound on him or just share that he's one? That's what I heard. Hello?
Oh, so he just wants to know if he is. So that's, I think he
Yeah, he is. So
yeah, okay.
Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bonnie Whaler were the first three persons in the group. Yes, even though it's called Bob Marley and the Whalers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you. And I want to know if how has the Jamaican diaspora immigrant contributed to the Jamaican economy? Are the remittances of those abroad documented?
Yes, remittances are documented, and remittances have increased even during the pandemic. It has increased even more. Those, I didn't present it here because I didn't think I needed to be honest, but yes, remittances have increased more than even last year, relative to last year, or even pre-pandemic level. So yes, we do have it. Yeah. So you would think remittances would go down, but it has actually gone up, and we still there are many arguments for why that is.
Okay, and I think we have Shannon that wants to talk. Let me.
Hi, Alvin. My name is Shauna. So I'm actually a Jamaican. I was born there in Town. I went to elementary school, then I came here and I actually do my MBA at Michigan State University.
Mm-hmm.
And my question, since you're an economist, I think this is like right up your alley. So recently the Jamaican dollar has slid to an all-time low of 150 to 100 to $1 US.
Yeah.
So since we had ownership of our own money, we developed the Jamaican currency. We've consistently, our money has been devaluing consistently. So my question to you is, what sort of initiatives are being taken to sort of like offset the further devaluation of the Jamaican dollar?
Okay, so I will answer. I smile when you were talking because I'm actually working on a paper about the exchange rate. But specifically about the real effective exchange rate, which is really deals with our relative competitiveness to other countries, because that's important, not just the nominal exchange rate that you may see, which is probably about $150 now. Now, as it relates to the exchange rate, the Bank of Jamaica is the monetary authority of Jamaica. But more importantly, we are a inflation targeting bank. And what does that mean is that our main objective is really to control inflation and to control it in a sense that it does not yield much macro instability. Now, because of how Jamaica is and because of what we call an economic trilemma, we can't just control everything at once. But in terms of what we're taking steps to is to ensure, one, that if there is like a shortage of exchange rate, the Bank of Jamaica will supply that to the market, and so that the dollar does not depreciate. So that's what the bank is doing. But as long as there's not like a significant shortage in the market, because it's a flexible floating exchange rate, and what does that mean is that it's really determined by buyers and sellers in the market. And even though we have been seeing the depreciation, and it's really kind of cause for concern, more importantly, what our objective is to really control inflation. So to answer your question, what the bank will do is to set up like a B-Fix-It, what we have, and we'll really sell foreign exchange to the market whenever there's a shortage, so that the price doesn't really depreciate that much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you, Always. One question, Philip wants to know, apart from the athletes and musicians you mentioned, are there Jamaicans that are famous in other sectors?
Yes. I think I mentioned, sorry, give me a sec. This is an important part, sorry.
I mean, just to fill the silence is, he didn't mention big names like Marcus Garvey, that we know that is a big name to the same parallel to Dr. King here in the United States. And I know people who watch the Olympics. I love the Olympics. There's always somebody who's running faster than everybody else in the Olympics. The movie about the team that made a history of what do they call it? The sled, the ice sledding. That became a movie. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. That was a very important call. Yeah, so to take question, yeah, there are other famous persons in other sectors. I think I mentioned some as well. Butch Stewart, who is in the hotel in industry, and Michael Leachin, who is in the banking. So there are other famous people here, of course, yes. But I mentioned those in music because persons in music will travel abroad, and music, you will know those persons. Yeah.
And I think Monique has a comment.
Hi, Monique. Yeah.
No, it's on the Q&A. Someone asked a question about the 70s social movement and changes this would have made for Blacks. The social movements in the 70s, especially with Michael Manley at the helm, had created social programs that helped Blacks become business owners, but all these were overturned in the 80s with the election of a new prime minister who introduced the IMF and partnered with Reagan. Do you have a comment to add to that?
So that's a very controversial point, and I don't know. I truly don't know how to comment. I truly don't know. It's a very mixed sentiment as it relates to Jamaica and the IMF, especially the last time when we took a loan to help with our balance of payment. Many persons disagreed with it, but I think that was a very crucial step to take then, because it has helped us to get back on track, and I believe Jamaica is on a much better path economically. Yeah, but politics, I personally stay away from politics. I personally, I'm neither for or against. I just look at what they're doing and I either disagree or agree, personally. Yeah.
And that's totally fine. And we're at the end of our
Okay.
time. And
I believe
so
I just wanted to say one last thing, because I think Isaac is asking some questions, especially about artists. So just I think it was a couple of comments, but I guess I'm going to respond this way, Isaac, that artists are a very big part of Jamaica. I think they contribute in some form or way to the economy. There have been some talks in recent times that the government does not really give them much appreciation about, with that. And so most of their money is really made abroad, I would say. Artists say that anyways, and there was even like a whole big thing, I think maybe last year or the year before, where they had a festival, and the festival was really titled for Jamaican Bad Word, right? And they were really saying, look how Europeans can really name a festival after this bad word and really bring artists there and make money. But in Jamaica, if you say that word, at least on a stage show or concert, what we call them, you will get charged. So they feel a way about that. I am sure there is some economic contribution about artists that's probably available, but I will check. And you guys are free to reach out to me, and I will definitely respond to your email and give you a little data if you want to. All right.
thank you very much. So this is the end of the lecture. We appreciate your coming and sharing with us today, Dr. Harris. Really, thank you. Thank you also
Thank
to
you
Dr.
very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right.
And thank you to everybody who attended and asked the questions. I'll see you next Thursday. Right?
And Shana, Monique and Shana, of course, we should talk. All right?
Yeah, I just added you on LinkedIn.
Okay, good. I will check. All right. Okay. I will check for sure. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend, or well, today's Thursday, but yeah. All right. Take care.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.